Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to NAB.
Weather has
Wanna be a broadcast star, gotta let them know who you are. Yeah, no matter who you are, you gotta let them know, you gotta let it show. Digital war chief, channel every opportunity with digital technology.
Here in the White House, and it took me a long time.
You gotta let it show, you gotta let them know. So turn it up, turn it on, time to get it on. Turn it up to the max, to the end of the song. Let's scream it. Channel opportunity. Channel opportunity. Channel opportunity. Channel opportunity. NAB Show, channels opportunity. It's the way to strategize and create. It's the way to connect and educate. It's the way to brand and entertain. It's the way. That's the way in the digital world. Creation, management, commerce. We bring distribution and delivery to all consumers. So you wanna be a broadcaster? Yeah, creative master. Wanna rock the network faster? We gotta be digital rock stars. Turn it up, turn it on, time to get it on. Turn it up to the max, to the end of the song. Let's scream it. Channel opportunity. Channel opportunity. Channel opportunity. Channel opportunity. NAB Show, channels opportunity.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome NAB Joint Board Chair and Senior Advisor to YMF Media, Charles Warfield Jr.
Good morning and welcome to the 2014 NAB Show. We're delighted to see more than 94,000 attendees from 156 countries join us at the show, the ultimate marketplace for digital media and entertainment. The theme of this year's show is Channel Opportunity, an inspiring message that encourages us to tap into the great potential of the industry. What we see and hear this week will show us the way to play in a digital world. And we're going to kick off with today's program. We're going to hear from NAB President and CEO Gordon Smith on the issues impacting local radio and television's future. We'll honor Univision's Jorge Ramos with the Distinguished Service Award for his many contributions to broadcasting. And we'll hear a discussion between Univision Chairman Haim Saban and Gordon on the challenges and opportunities facing the media industry. And over the next several days, we hope you take every opportunity to interact with entrepreneurs, content creators, visionaries, vendors, and technologists who are driving broadcasting's evolution. NAB Show is your channel, and this is your opportunity to explore an expansive show floor featuring nearly 1,600 dynamic exhibits that demonstrate unprecedented opportunities to deliver content to the connected consumer, to learn about the policy issues and the business forces shaping the future of our industry, to go beyond the scenes with creative masters from some of this year's award-nominated and award-winning series and films, to celebrate the men and women who have made tremendous contributions to radio and television, and to honor the local stations that are always on and always there for their communities, helping those in need and providing a lifeline during times of crisis. In the spirit of giving back, to our communities. NAB Show has joined with Got Your Six, an entertainment industry-backed campaign working to bridge the civilian-military divide by changing the conversation around American veterans. Numerous NAB members and already big supporters of Got Your Six, including Fox, CBS, ABC, and NBC Universal, which produced a short video message to raise awareness of this campaign. Let's take a look.
Who are the men and women who have served in the United States military? They are leaders, they're team builders, they are problem solvers, they are ready to return home and continue to serve. Each day, about 500 service members exit the military and re-enter civilian life. That's more than 1 million veterans who will return to our communities over the next 5 years. As they return, thank them for their service, but also empower them to be great by expecting great things of them. Help shift the perception of veterans by recognizing and valuing who they really are. Veterans are 1 in every 10 adult Americans. They are more likely than civilians to be employed, more likely to volunteer in their communities, and less likely to live in poverty. The reintegration of these veterans is not a problem, it's an opportunity. As doctors, teachers, service providers, business owners, and elected officials, veterans are leading the new greatest generation. So, who are the men and women who have served in the United States military? They are hope for the future, and they are returning home. It's now our duty to look ahead with them and ask them, what's next?
And ladies and gentlemen, that was the voice of former NAB intern Brian Williams, whom you may also recognize as the anchor of NBC Nightly News. Brian and I want all of you to support Got Your Six in bridging the military-civilian divide by visiting their booth in the North Hall lobby this week. There you can recharge your batteries while meeting some very impressive veterans in our industry. You can learn other ways to support this campaign by visiting GotYourSix.org. And now it's my pleasure to recognize today's sponsor, Blackmagic Design, for their support of this event. On behalf of Blackmagic Design, please welcome their president, Dan May.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us for the NAB 2014 show. What year is this? It is our pleasure to join you this morning because this is going to be an exciting week. It is always a great time of year for us to come together from many different aspects of our industry, share our ideas, and talk about the technological developments that are happening right before our eyes. Last year, we saw the launch of Ultra HD into the marketplace. Consumer televisions have made their way into homes, with reportedly near 2 million Ultra HD TVs being sold globally in 2013. In 2014, that number is expected to leap to 12.7 million sets sold, with many panel makers more optimistically estimating to manufacture 27 million Ultra HD screens. That is a lot of televisions. But what about content? While the Ultra HD specs aren't new, they still do present challenges to broadcasters around the world. With Ultra HD being 4 times the size of traditional HD, there are significant questions about how to handle this bandwidth. Imagine if we tried to take a traditional HD broadcast and send that down a pipe 1/4 the size we use today. The quality would be terrible. Yet essentially, that's what we'd all like to do with Ultra HD, and take this massive bitrate and squeeze it into the current broadcast infrastructure. Clearly, the need to get behind new compression technology is going to be needed for broadcasters to be able to move forward with Ultra HD. These codecs and compression technologies are being watched by all of us, and we hope to see more of this much-needed development here at NAB. All the same, Ultra HD content is being produced and continues to expand. Last year at NAB, Blackmagic Design introduced and shipped the world's first 6 gig SDI equipment. And since that time, we've shipped tens of thousands of Ultra HD-based switchers, converters, DaVinci Resolve color grading and editing software, and our Ultra HD digital film cameras. All of these products are being used to create fantastic Ultra HD content right now. This year, Blackmagic Design will have converted almost our entire product line over to Ultra HD using 6 gig SDI technology and at the same prices as those devices they replace. 6 gig SDI does allow us to connect to Ultra HD equipment while still retaining compatibility with current SD and HD SDI infrastructure. So there are still challenges as we do work together to find the best practices for Ultra HD broadcasting, but this is just one of the exciting conversations to have this week at NAB. We do look forward to speaking with you about these developments, and we hope to see you all at the Blackmagic Design booth in the South Hall this week. Thank you very much.
And our thanks once again to Dan May and Blackmagic Design for sponsoring this morning's event. And now I'm pleased to introduce our next speaker. With the many challenges that radio and television face, having Gordon Smith at the helm of NAB is more important than ever. Since he joined NAB as president and CEO in 2009, NAB has become more active and more influential in its advocacy. Gordon has provided strong and steady leadership that has led the association to many successes. He served 2 terms as Oregon's U.S. Senator. And during his term in the Senate, Gordon's committee assignments included the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, the panel that oversees all broadcast-related legislation. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to NAB President and CEO, Gordon Smith.
Thank you, Charles. And welcome everyone to the NAB Show. Though change abounds in the media industry, your attendance at this show to celebrate technology, content, and connectivity is a constant that we appreciate. We especially welcome those of you who have traveled many miles to be here from many continents. This is an exciting time to be in the media business. Just take a look at what's happening at the show. NHK is demonstrating over-the-air transmission of SK content. Next Radio is presenting a highly interactive experience for radio listeners on smartphones. And multi-screen services like ATSC 2.0 are showing how today's broadcast TV can be enhanced with synchronized content delivered via the internet. Throughout the marketplace, we're beginning to see the incredible power of the convergence between broadcasting and broadband. A future that includes both is bright. Broadband, much like broadcast radio and television in a former age, is a game changer. It's enhanced the ways we communicate, creating new platforms for consumers to deliver and receive content. But broadband and broadcast industries differ in the sources of our motivation. Broadcasters strive each day to serve their local communities. Broadcasting is broadcasters, men and women uniquely tied to the people they serve, men and women who are committed not only to innovation, but to serving the public interest. The pioneers of broadcasting believed that radio and television could be used for the greater good to inform, entertain, and help people understand what happens beyond the boundaries of their own lives. Throughout all the great moments in history, both tragic and joyful, local broadcasters have been there to capture them. We turn to local TV and radio stations to follow the inspiring events that have shaped our nation and to mourn together when tragedy befalls our communities, our government, and our leaders. We're here to be the public's eyes and ears, to lead them out of danger in times of crisis, to share profound moments, and to connect our family, our friends, and our neighbors. We're here to be the voices against oppression, and we're here to be the megaphones for freedom and democracy. We're always here for our communities, anywhere they are, and always available for free. That is the public good we provide, and that is our mission. And that's what's at the heart of what we do every day. There's no substitute for broadcasters' dedication to localism. There's no other medium dedicated to serving the local communities throughout this great nation of ours. And there's no denying broadcasting's economic impact. The local broadcast radio and television industry contributes nearly $1.3 trillion of gross domestic product, and we add 3 million jobs to the American economy annually. Couple this with broadcast radio and television's efficient one-to-many architecture. It's no wonder other industries are challenging us on all fronts. Frankly, it's hard to compete with what's free and what's local. The wireless industry covets our spectrum because they chew through their massive allotment of spectrum, attempting to deliver the video we deliver more efficiently. And they continue to milk, bilk, and bill by the bit. Our content, our connection to local communities, and our special efficiency, frankly, make us the envy of others. We're a competitive threat. I'm not sure Washington always views us this way, however. On the one hand, government treats us as if we're dinosaurs, and it does what it can to encourage television stations to go out of business. On the other hand, the FCC says we're so important and so powerful that 2 television stations can't share advertising in the same market, while it's okay for multiple cable, satellite, and telecommunications to do the very same thing. So which is it? Too powerful or irrelevant? It can't be both. One possible explanation is that over the past 5 years, there's been an increasingly singular focus by the federal government on broadband. The government invested many millions of dollars and a year of the FCC's time and effort to produce a national broadband plan, a roadmap for investment and innovation for the cable and wireless industries. The FCC has also opened separate inquiries on how to foster investment in broadband. All the while, the FCC has continued to regulate broadcasters as if the world is stuck in the 1970s. So I ask, why doesn't the FCC have a national broadcast plan? Why is there no focus to foster innovation and investment in broadcasting to ensure that our businesses continue to be a world leader alongside our broadcast industries? Where's the FCC's gusto and determination to embrace broadcasting's values and public service responsibilities? A national broadcast plan would take a holistic view of our industry, something we've been seeking for years. Rather than addressing one small piece of radio and television ownership rules, why not conduct a meaningful and thorough review of all these decades-old regulations? Instead of individually looking at, for example, the UHF discount or the sports broadcast rule or the use of sharing agreements, why not step back and assess whether, and if so, to what extent those rules achieve our nation's broadcast goals? A national broadcast plan could look at any number of areas and figure out how broadcasting can continue to be a competitive force in this country and continue to serve the public interest. For example, from a public safety perspective, what can enhance the role broadcasters play? Because of the strength of our architecture and the power of our airwaves, local stations are often the only available communications medium during disaster situations. As former FCC Chairman Mark Fowler noted in a recent op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, quote, "Broadcasting kept more than 8 million people safe and informed during Hurricane Sandy. Broadband can't do that." So why not, for example, think seriously about removing the competitive and other barriers to, for example, including FM chips in mobile phones? Why not inquire about the role of mobile TV and mobile emergency alert systems that we can help play in keeping the American people safe. Time and again, we've witnessed how broadcasters deliver life-saving information during emergencies, often placing their own lives in jeopardy. So I would ask the FCC, is this not the highest and best use of spectrum? And if the answer is no, then ask this question: what is the worth of a human soul? A national broadcast plan would capitalize on broadcasting's one-to-many architecture that transmits one signal to many receivers. Its service area spanning hundreds of square miles. Now, this inquiry I'm suggesting is critical, because wireless broadband chugs along and buffers and crawls, especially when it comes to video. If consumers want access to large live events, broadcasting must be part of the solution. And if the Commission is really serious about competition, it will study how broadcasting can be a competitive check on cable and wireless industries. In its national broadcast plan, the FCC should also refocus itself on some of the primary goals of the Communications Act. Without broadcasting, who will carry out the public's interest mandates of diversity and localism, to say nothing of children's programming, political events, and observing decency standards of local communities? Will cable companies do that? Wireless companies? Not a chance. Held to these standards that broadcasters have, the internet's business model would simply collapse. We also cannot afford to risk disenfranchising those in society who rely most, if not exclusively, on broadcast TV and radio as their primary source of local news, emergency updates, sports, and entertainment. Our government leaders, at least as I hear it, have placed a high priority on giving a voice to those whose voices often go unheard. Those people who live in rural communities, in low-income areas, many in our minority communities, and seniors, and increasingly young techies. Ironically, these are the very people who would be harmed the most by a spectrum incentive auction that is not carried out judiciously. It seems the FCC is at odds with the very constituencies that the White House values the most. Now, NAB has worked tirelessly for the past year and a half to help the FCC deliver on Congress's direction to hold a voluntary broadcast incentive auction. For every concern we have raised, we have offered a meaningful solution. But let's face it, the incentive auction will affect the TV broadcast industry far more than any other. Ours is the only industry in the auction that can actually end up worse off and very harmed. While we understand the goal of freeing up spectrum and believe in smart spectrum policy, an equal aim should be to ensure that broadcasters and their viewers are not harmed in the process. But at the moment, it is at best an open question whether the FCC has balanced these aims. Recently, the FCC ruled against sharing arrangements between two stations in the same market, deeming them a violation of ownership rules, many years after having already blessed those transactions as being in the public interest. But at the same time, the FCC is pushing stations now to channel share in an effort to reclaim more spectrum to auction off. So let's get this straight. Sharing is good until it isn't. The FCC says it's okay until it isn't, and now sharing is good again. But when will they say it isn't? In light of the FCC's recent action, it's not surprising that broadcasters are finding it hard to trust the FCC will follow through on its commitments during the incentive auction. How can we trust that the carpet won't be pulled out from underneath us again, even after we've followed the rules? The truth is we don't know. And that's the problem for the incentive auction. Now, to close this trust gap, the FCC must work collaboratively with broadcasters. It must demonstrate through its actions, not just words, but that in fact it's committed to ensuring broadcasting is a competitive force with a thriving future. It also must commit to ensuring viewers can still access the same channels after the auction. We must also ensure that the continuation of the current free market retransmission consent process is preserved. The government should continue to encourage fair and market-based negotiations that result in the most compelling and popular programming for viewers. Government intervention would only tip the scales in favor of TV providers, whose end game is to drive free TV out of business and to capitalize on additional and new advertising dollars. Through aggressive advocacy in Washington, I promise you this: NAB will remain committed to ensuring broadcasters' long legacy of serving the American people. Whether it's attempts by big record labels to impose a tax on local radio stations for simply playing music, or pay TV companies' attempts to get out of fairly compensating broadcasters for the most highly viewed content they resell, you can be sure we will not let down our guard. The enduring value of broadcasting remains. It is the ultimate survivor. Even with competing media platforms, broadcast radio and television is still the preferred technology for news and entertainment. From hybrid FM radio, mobile T, and Ultra HD, we are experiencing exciting developments in broadcasting. And in order to continue adapting and responding to consumers' demands, I believe television broadcasting should seriously consider the challenges and the opportunities of moving to a new receiver standard. This would allow stations the flexibility and efficiency they need to innovate, to better serve their viewers, and to compete in the mobile world, and to find new revenue streams. Now, the world as we know it is volatile. We face a very divided Congress that cannot seem to find meaningful and honorable compromises. And amidst all this, and despite the strength of those in and out of government seeking to weaken broadcasting, the strength of your broadcast industry remains strong. And our task to defend the enduring values of broadcasting and to always be there for our listeners and viewers when they need us the most remains as important and as winnable as ever. Broadcasting, as I said before, is America's indispensable, irreplaceable industry. As Andrew Jackson once said long ago, quote, "As long as our government is administered for the good of the people and is regulated by their will, and as long as it secures to us the rights of persons and of property, liberty of conscience and of press, it will be worth defending." We have a crucial mission that goes beyond ensuring the viability of the broadcast business. Broadcasting is more than just another moneyed interest. Broadcasting goes to the heart of making sure that the beautiful Lady Liberty, who stands with arms outstretched at the entrance to New York Harbor, will still be standing hundreds of years from now. Broadcasting will be the voice of our freedom, the voice of our democracy. That is something precious. That is something worth defending. That is something worth winning. And I thank you very much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor that I have to introduce the Distinguished Service Award, which recognizes outstanding individuals who've made significant and lasting contributions to broadcasting. In receiving this award, today's honoree joins the ranks of broadcast luminaries such as Bob Schieffer, Michael J. Fox, Mary Tyler Moore, Edward R. Murrow, Walter Cronkite, and Oprah Winfrey. For nearly 30 years, Jorge Ramos has distinguished himself as one of America's leading broadcast journalists and one of the most recognized and respected figures in Hispanic television. He arrived in the United States from Mexico in 1983 as a student, bringing with him a passion for broadcast journalism that has fueled his incredible career. At age 28, he became one of the youngest national news anchors in the history of American television when he took on the co-anchoring duties at Univision News. But taking on that enormous responsibility as a young journalist was just the beginning for Jorge. Over the years, he has covered global conflicts, reporting from the ground to vividly bring viewers to where the news is happening. And he's interviewed world leaders on pressing issues impacting our nation and our world. He is dedicated to finding the truth and sharing it with his audiences in the news so that they can be informed citizens. Jorge is one of the most respected journalists among the 50 million Hispanics in the United States and in the 13 Latin American countries where his newscast is seen every night. He also brings his commanding style to his daily radio commentary for Univision Radio. He has appeared on Time Magazine's list of the 25 most influential Hispanics in the United States and at the Newsweek list of 50 top political and media figures. His many awards and accolades speak to his influence, his credibility, and his objectivity as one of the most powerful voices within the Hispanic American community. Let's take a look at this man's remarkable career, the career of Jorge Ramos.
Jorge Ramos is one of the most admired and trusted television journalists in the United States. That has earned him the sobriquet, the Hispanic Walter Cronkite, although in his Twitter account, it only says immigrant. For his nonstop effort on and off the air to fairly portray the Hispanic community and the undocumented immigrants in the United States, he's been called the voice of the voiceless. According to a recent Pew Hispanic Center poll, he's been ranked the second most recognized Latino leader in the country today. Tongue-in-cheek, no doubt, Forbes magazine recently published that Ramos carries near biblical authority, at least in the eyes of his nearly 2 million nightly viewers. The Wall Street Journal reported that Ramos is a key to a huge voting bloc.
¿Qué tal? Muy buenas noches. Continuamos aquí en
Jorge Ramos has been the co-anchor of Noticiero Univision since 1986. At 28, he was one of the youngest journalists in the country to hold such a position in a national newscast in any language.
Lo que sí ocurre es que es el fin de una era.
In fact, looking back on his career, there are only a few historic events in the latter half of the 20th century and the early 21st century for which Ramos has not been present.
¿Usted ha matado a alguien? Pues de esas cosas no habla un...
He's covered 5 wars, endless political conventions, and a good share of natural disasters. He drove all the way from Miami to New York immediately after September 11th. Once, he asked for a vacation to cover the war in Afghanistan.
Where is Osama?
Osama comes there.
An assignment that, at the time, the network deemed too dangerous. Also, he was one of the first reporters to enter Iraq at the beginning of the war in 2003.
Lo que estamos viendo en estos momentos es la tan necesitada ayuda humanitaria. Encontramos a muchos jóvenes.
His thoughts and experiences about those trips and many others are included in his 11 books. In Dying to Cross, he writes about the worst immigrant tragedy in American history. 19 people died suffocated in a trailer truck in Texas. In A Country for All, he argues for immigration reform and equal treatment for millions of undocumented immigrants. But the most personal of his books is The Gift of Time, letters from a father written to his son Nicholas and his daughter Paola. He's been instrumental in promoting literacy among Latinos. In 2002, he created the first book club in the history of Hispanic television. This led the way for his commitment to improve education among Hispanics. He's been involved with many organizations that provide scholarships to immigrant and Hispanic students attending college. He's a relentless interviewer, to say the least. Many newsmakers end up on the hot seat in Ramos's Sunday morning political show, Al Punto. Translation? To the point. And that's exactly what is done with every American president since Ronald Reagan. He's been at the White House interviewing George Bush Sr., Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and President Barack Obama. He also hosts America with Jorge Ramos, his first program in English on Fusion. It's a unique mix of original reporting where each week he brings intensity and fearlessness to the stories that matter most to young Americans. He's had very public encounters with Venezuela's former president, Hugo Chavez, with former Cuban dictator, Fidel Castro, and with Nicaraguan president, Daniel Ortega. The president of Bolivia, Evo Morales, stood up after only 6 minutes of questioning by Ramos.
Tengo 6 minutos 40 de entrevista. Esta es la ceniza.
Jorge Ramos left Mexico when he was 24 after a censorship incident at the television station where he was working. Nevertheless, he's followed Mexican and Latin American politics as if they were local news. During the last 3 decades, no Latin American leader with political baggage has escaped his reach, either on the air or in print. He writes a weekly column distributed to more than 40 newspapers in English and Spanish by the New York Times Syndicate. He's received 8 Emmy Awards for excellence in journalism, in addition to the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Lifetime Achievement Award, the prestigious Maria Morse Cabot Award from Columbia University, and the RTDNA John F. Hogan Distinguished Service Award. But more importantly, after so many decades in the business, Jorge Ramos is still a newsman at heart. If people don't believe in what you say, he repeats frequently, it makes no sense to be a journalist.
Hasta mañana. Gracias.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jorge Ramos. Joining me on the stage is Haim Saban, Chairman of Univision Communications, and Charles Warfield. Jorge,
Thank you so much.
congratulations. Thank you.
It's great. Muchísimas gracias. I'm really honored and humbled to be the first Latino reporter, the first Latino journalist ever to receive this award. It's something. It's like the country somehow is changing, and it's great. 30 years ago, Cesar Chavez, the iconic leader of the Hispanic community, said the following. He said, "We've seen the future, and the future is ours." Cesar Chavez was, of course, a brave man, a wise man, and on this, he was absolutely right. It was 1984, and I still remember I arrived in Los Angeles the year before, and I got my first job as a reporter on KMEX, the Univision station in Los Angeles. It wasn't easy. I still remember one news director in Los Angeles telling me that I would never work in this country because he said, "Your accent is too thick." He was right on that. And also he said, "And then forget about working in Spanish because eventually all Latinos are going to assimilate and no one is going to be working in Spanish in the United States." Well, at the end, he lost his job and I got mine. So, but it's been a great ride. Back then in 1984, there were only 15 million Latinos in this country. Right now, there are 55 million. And in 35 years, there's going to be 150 million Latinos here in the United States. It's a truly, truly demographic revolution. It's what I call the Latino wave. And thanks to the Latino wave, and to people like Haim Saban, and to great programming and a lot of hard work, Univision, for instance, became the #1 network in the United States, regardless of language, last summer. And that's changed. So Univision is doing great. Thanks for asking. And we love being numero uno. We love being number one. And we want to be number one, not just for one summer, but for the winter and for year after year after year. And I think we can do that. And as you know, I'm also working now on Fusion, which is a great partnership between ABC News and Univision. And I think we are creating a new brand of journalism for millennials. So if you can take a look, I think it's great, innovative programming. And we need, obviously, more cable companies to carry in. So if you know any of them, please let them know that Fusion is great. Now, let me just say a few words about journalism in the 21st century. In a world in which there are about 3 billion people using cell phones, with cell phones in their hands, cameras in their hands, in a world in which social media rules, you could argue that we can compete with them. I can't be in Ukraine and in Caracas, in Mexico City, in Washington at the same time. But I would argue that nowadays, journalists are more important than ever before. Because we can put information in context, because we can tell what's real from what's false, because we know what's relevant, because we know how news are impacting your life. But more than that, I think the most important social role for journalists is to question those who are in power. I think we have to speak truth to power. And many times, I think that's the most important role that we have, honestly, because sometimes we say that to be neutral is what we should do as journalists, but I think we're wrong on that. I think to be neutral sometimes is being as an excuse not to do our job. Many, many times journalists in this country are way too close to the powerful, and as journalists, we have to make them uncomfortable. I think we have to say, for instance, as journalists, we have to say that in Venezuela, the leader of the regime, because it's not a democracy, is responsible for the killings of dozens of students. We have to say that as journalists. I think it's great that we're spending a lot of time on Ukraine, but I can't understand why we're not spending more time talking about Venezuela. In this country, for instance, as journalists, we have to say that Speaker Boehner and the Republicans are blocking immigration reform in the House. And if they continue with this anti-immigrant position, they will lose the White House in 2016, and 2020, 24, and so on. We have to say that. Also, we have to say that if President Barack Obama really wants to be a friend of the Latino community, first of all, he has to stop deporting us. President Barack Obama has deported more than 2 million immigrants, more than any other president in the history of the United States. And just yesterday, I was reading the New York Times, more than 5,000 children have ended up in foster care because of this deportation policy. In other words, that has to stop. But this morning, I don't want to complain. This morning, I want to celebrate. I think it's a great time to be a Latino journalist. I think finally we found our voice, both in English and Spanish. It took a long time, but we found our voice. And I am sure that this incredible Latino wave, that because of that we will see very soon the first Latino president, or the first Presidenta Latina. So remember that at the beginning of the speech I was telling you that Cesar Chavez said that we've seen the future, and the future is ours. Well, the future that he envisioned is precisely right now. And I just want to say a few words in Spanish for the first time here. Since 1953, it's a great honor. So just let me say a few words. Me encanta que esta es la primera vez en que un periodista latino, representando a miles de periodistas más, recibe un premio como este. Creo que nuestra labor es cuestionar a aquellos que están en el poder, y no me puedo ir de aquí sin hablar de Venezuela y decir que en Venezuela nadie puede ser presidente si está matando a sus estudiantes. Gracias. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations again to Jorge Ramos. And I'm very pleased to be joined by our next guest, Haim Saban, the chairman of Univision Communications, founder of the Saban Capital Group and the Saban Center for Mideast Policy at the Brookings Institution. Through his strategic and successful business moves, Haim has established himself as a true pioneer in the broadcast and entertainment industry. Some of Haim's most successful deals include the 2003 acquisition of a controlling stake in Germany's leading TV broadcast group, ProSieben. My German's not.
Sat.1.
He's better at German. And
not bad for a Jew. You know?
An investment that tripled in value when he exited 3 years later. Also, Haim acquired a controlling interest in Bezik, a leading Middle East Bezik, a leading Middle East telecommunications company.
I'm here for you, Gordon. No problem.
No problem. In 2005, and sold its stake for an enterprise value of $8.1 billion in 2010. In 2007, Haim teamed with a group of investors to acquire Univision Communications. Under his leadership, Univision Communications has grown as the leading media company serving Hispanic America. The company's assets include Univision Network, one of the top 5 networks regardless of language, and the most watched Spanish language broadcast television network in the country, reaching 96% of US Hispanic households. Univision Communications also oversees Univision Television Group, which owns and/or operates 62 television stations in major US Hispanic markets and Puerto Rico, as well as Univision Radio, which owns and/or operates 69 stations in 16 of the top US Hispanic markets, and again in Puerto Rico. Last year, Univision Communications and Disney ABC Television Network launched Fusion as a joint venture targeted at English-speaking millennials. Now, beyond his many business ventures, Haim and his wife Cheryl are considered among the most generous philanthropists in the United States and Israel. They established the Saban Family Foundation, and in 1999 to support medical, children's, and education programs, such as the Saban Community Clinic in Los Angeles, the Saban Research Institute at Children's Hospital in Los Angeles, and the American Israel Education Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, Haim Saban. How'd I do?
I think I want to quit while I'm ahead.
Okay.
That's how well you did.
Well, Haim, I'm glad you're here to articulate the stuff I can't pronounce, but what the audience did not learn in your introduction is that Saban Entertainment first produced the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in the early 1990s. Every kid watched it then, and it's still very popular today. And so I guess I'm wondering, did you ever think a show about some teens who morphed into heroes with spandex?
Why don't you leave that part to me?
Okay, I'll leave that part to you.
Yeah. First, I'd like to thank you for having me here today.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank all the hard work you're doing on our behalf. And we're all here to salute you for all that hard work.
Well,
you're not always as successful as we'd like you to be.
Yeah, I know.
But you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job, so thank you. The second thing I'd like to say before I tell you the Mighty Morphin story is you have touched in your speech on every single point I intended to talk about. So what are we going to talk about this morning? I have no idea.
Let's go.
Yeah, in 1984, I was laying on my bed in a hotel in Tokyo, flipping through the 3 channels, and all of a sudden, these 5 kids in spandex appeared and kicking monsters that came to Earth to eat all the food on Earth. And I thought, that sounds like an intelligent show, and I'd like to... I can't explain why, but I fell in love with it. It's That's just great. From my gut, my kishke, it just really just grabbed me. And it took me 8 years. Every sales season, I'd go to the networks and I'd say, could you please buy this? And they say, aren't you ashamed to present this? And I'd say, not really, because it's great. They said, you're nuts. Goodbye. And I got thrown out of offices more times than I care to count. And 8 years later, a lady by the name of Margaret Lesh at Fox Kids picked it up. All the affiliates were against it. They all wrote letters to Rupert Murdoch saying, we cannot put that show on the air. It is an embarrassment. And then she said to me, I'm going to run it for 8 weeks in the summer, and then you're out. I said, but I got all this merchandise on the shelves for the fall. She said, that's your problem. You're out.
You're out.
So she put it on, and the rest is history. Obviously, everybody thought that she and I walk on water afterwards, but after we got rejected. And, you know, we got really very lucky with it. Sold more than $6 billion worth of merchandise throughout the world. When we sold our company to Disney, Power Rangers went with it. They couldn't figure out what exactly to do with it, so we bought it back from them at a fraction of a price of what they paid, of course. Even though they're very good business people, you know, I'm not putting them down by any stretch of the imagination. But I guess in that specific case, we were better than them. So anyway, but only in that specific case.
What a great story. I guess when I think about how you must have gotten your start, I wonder what started you getting these ideas. What did you watch as a young boy?
I didn't watch anything because I grew up in Egypt, where I was born, until the age of 12. Then I moved to Israel. And there was no TV until I was, I think, around 30 years old, which is when I moved to France. No TV, so there wasn't much to watch.
What year was that?
You want me to tell you how old I am?
No, I better not.
What year was that? When I moved to France, that was 1975.
1975.
And until then, there was almost no TV. Now, Israel TV, you know, is giving us Homeland, and they're creating a lot of shows that are sold internationally, but then there was nothing to watch. So when I moved to France, they had 3 channels, and there still was nothing to watch over there.
Still nothing to watch.
French TV, anybody? Have you ever experienced French TV?
No.
No, you're lucky, so forget about it.
Well, obviously, without television, you still learned about the Beatles, and I understand that you were once part of a member of a Beatles cover band. And
well, we were a cover band. We were a very popular cover band.
Were you John, Ringo, Paul, or George?
I don't want to compare myself to these 4 guys, but I was a really lousy player. So they kicked me out of the band and asked me to be the manager of the band, which worked out okay, you know, so.
It worked out just fine.
Right.
Would you want to sing something for us now, maybe Help?
Help is something I always need.
No, you've had an incredible journey, Haim, in the media industry. Today, you're one of the chairman of one of the top 5 networks in the country, regardless of language. I wonder what first attracted you to Univision. And as a predicate to that, I want our audience to know, when you and I first met, you came to NAB, and I just immediately, you have a magnetism about you that I just found enormously attractive. So I arranged to go with your Jose Valle, one of the great board members we have at NAB, spent a day with him at Univision, and I was blown away. I mean, it was as fine an operation as you can find in broadcasting anywhere on planet Earth. And I wonder what attracted you to Univision, and if you can share with how you've grown this remarkable company.
Well, first of all, you know, I don't want anybody to get the impression that I'm running the day-to-day of this company, because I'm not. This is Randy Falco, and Jose Valle running radio, and Kevin Cudahy running local, and all these incredible management team that Randy Falco has put together.
Yes.
They are the ones that deserve all the credit to have built on a very, I would say, responsible and successful company that Jerry Perenchio launched over the years. So I wish, you know, I would have liked to take all the credit, but it wouldn't be reflective of reality. So,
well, the leadership comes from you, I think, and you just put really solid people in place, as you, Randy and Jose. And
we are very lucky to have the management that we have in place. They do a terrific job.
You heard me say in my speech, I talk a lot about free and local. And I'm not sure there's a broadcast company that has a more focused approach to localism like you do to the Hispanic community. I mean, it's astonishing.
You know, Univision is really the home away from home for our community. Yeah. It truly is. You know, Univision has a brand. You asked me what attracted me to Univision. First of all, just to clarify, even though I'm the chairman, I'm one of 6 partners.
Sure.
And getting them all on the phone is like herding cats, but you know, I work on it, and we have developed a system to be able to get everybody on the phone when we need them. Whether it's TPG, Providence, MDP, THL, and obviously Televisa, which invested at a later stage with us and is our main supplier of the content that is so successful with Hispanics. They are, after all, the #1 producer of Spanish language content in the world. What attracted me is, and all of my partners, is the fact that it talks to, well, I go first, what really is most important is the brand. There is no other broadcaster, with all due respect to the other broadcasters, that have this kind of loyalty from its viewers. Univision is the second most trusted brand with Hispanics. Do you know what the first one is?
What is the first?
Try to guess. It's not Coca-Cola.
It's not Coca-Cola.
The Catholic Church.
The Catholic Church?
The Catholic Church.
Not the Mormon Church? No. Oh, I'm just...
Yeah, Mexican. Are there any Mormons in Mexico? I don't, I'm not so sure. So such a brand loyalty by our viewers is a rarity. So that's #1. #2, there were, and there still are, significant gaps in both ad revenues and CPM that advertisers pay. We're closing that gap versus English language. We're closing that gap. We're not totally there yet. #3, there was a huge opportunity in retrans. And our retrans 1.0 and then followed by our retrans 2.0 have been extremely successful. For some reason, the previous owners chose to go for must carry. We didn't understand the concept of giving our content for free and then somebody charges for it. So I just didn't comprehend that, even though, you know, the cable operators think that this is how it should be. So we said, you know, please pay us a few shekels to cover our expenses. Sure. And when you put all these elements together with the demographic growth, it was really a no-brainer.
Sure.
And we're very happy to have made that investment and very proud of it.
Well, if Univision is second to the Catholic Church, that means your broadcast company is pretty close to God. So that is a remarkable thing.
If you say, you know, I don't know, I'll take this home, I'll think about it, broadcasting close to God. Okay, if you say so.
Well, the U.S. Hispanics number over 50 million people, souls in the United States, and represents 56% of growth in the United States population since 2000, since the year 2000. And that's more than 4 times faster than the growth of the non-Hispanic white population. And so in many of your key sales markets, Hispanics now represent anywhere from a quarter to more than half of the population. So I guess that brings up the question, what is Univision's business strategy for keeping pace with the growth of U.S. Hispanics?
Well, just to be accurate, there are areas in Los Angeles, DMAs, where Hispanics are 96%.
96%?
96%, yes.
So 56%
and we like that,
low.
you know, it's okay with us. We were, the company was 3 services when we bought it, right?
Yeah.
We are now 16 services, including cable, online, and obviously broadcasting. We've significantly invested in content, in infrastructure, and in technology. And I believe that Univision is very well prepared and set for the next level, which is basically being able to offer our content everywhere, every day, and
every device.
And every device, absolutely.
And so how are you evolving then to keep up with your audience preferences? Obviously, mobile, you see that as an important part of the future?
I'm happy you raised that point, because I believe that it is vital for the broadcasting industry to develop a transmission standard that would allow us to deliver our content, our signal, to all platforms all the time. And I urge the ATSC to seriously not consider anything else but this option. Now, there are some members there that may be opposed to that because we would be competing with them. So we'll present our apologies and we'll still do it.
Sure.
We have to.
Yeah.
It's very simple. If we do not develop that new transmission standard, we will be left back in the 19th, 20th century, forget 19th, so 20th century, which is where the FCC has us.
Yeah, and I guess what you're saying is if we don't do this or find a way, then we're just going to be relegated to the TV in the living room, and we will not be on all the platforms of the 21st century.
Yeah, but it's not an option. We're not going to, you know, I mean, this is a lot of smart people here. We're not going to let it happen.
So we have to figure the backward compatibility issue and everything that...
I'm not a technician, and I don't know what's involved on the technical side. I know there are some complexities. There's some investment that needs to be, but it is vital. It is not just important. It is vital for us to be able to deliver that signal, and it is vital to have a new transmission standard. So that's what we need to do. What's involved, I'm going to let the experts do.
Yep.
But the people that work on this have marching orders. Make it freaking happen. That's it.
And you want us, the NAB, to help with that process, then?
You have to lead that effort.
You have to lead it.
Pull out the whip and make it happen.
Okay.
Okay.
I got my marching orders. Univision has a long history of public service, providing your audiences with important news, emergency updates, entertainment. We just honored Jorge Ramos with the Distinguished Service Award for his incredible contributions to broadcast journalism. 2 years ago, the NAB Foundation honored Univision with its Service to America President's Special Award for its nationwide education campaign, Es el Momento. I did better on Spanish. I took that in school, everybody. This obviously means the moment is now, aimed at improving academic achievement among Hispanic students. And so what is at the root of Univision's commitment to helping its local communities? I mean, I said at the beginning, I've never seen a broadcast company with this almost singular focus of getting as local as it can with the spirit of service that you have.
Well, I have to give the original credit to Jerry Perencio for instilling that DNA in the company. And to Randy Falco and his team for building upon that and expanding it in a very significant way.
Yeah.
As I may have mentioned at the beginning that Univision, for most of our audiences, are home away from home.
Yeah.
some of our local stations get calls like, you know, do you have a recommendation for where I should take my kids? What's best school they should go to? Where is the closest clinic? Yeah. Do you have a recommendation where I can get a job as a carpenter? I mean, it's amazing. That would never happen with any.
You give responses to those questions.
Of course, we have the responses ready for them because we've developed over the years, you know, an understanding of what are the issues that concern our community. So it's not only in the programming, because many of our peers have, you know, PSAs and programming that help the local communities, etc. With Univision, it's a special. Mm-hmm. It is an emotional connection that stems from the trust that the audience had in the brand. Yeah. And because of that trust, they go to the brand to get advice. Yeah. It's really amazing. I mean, you know, Randy, as I said, has made sure that this DNA continues and builds through programming, through different services to the community. So we're very proud of that. That's,
Well, I want you to know, I understand NAB's central goal is to advocate for the right policies that allow you all to make a payroll and serve your communities and to get a return on investment. I want you to know that with working with Bert and others of your team back there, your voice, Univision's voice in Washington, D.C. is powerful and impactful in a profound way. And you've mentioned retransmission consent, going from must carry to retransmission consent. I assume you think that that's a pretty important thing for us to preserve for broadcasting's future, retrans.
Well, yeah, I don't know a business where the cost of goods is zero. I mean, so you know what the FCC stands for?
What?
Friendly Cable Commission.
Friendly
So
I thought it was Federal Communications, but
I'm sorry,
I thought it was Federal Communications, but you've added a whole new color to that.
It's got nothing to do with communication. But so I don't understand even what the argument is, saying, give me your content, I'm gonna sell it to somebody, I'm gonna get paid for it, but I'm not gonna pay you. Great business concept.
Right.
It doesn't work. It's illogical. It doesn't make any sense. And you know, and at Univision, we're underpaid for our content. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay. Well, we'll win that fight then. Later this year, ladies and gentlemen, Univision will be the exclusively broadcasting the World Cup from Brazil. And I imagine that means a lot to you, to your company, and to the Hispanic community, but candidly to all the world. I'm actually going to it. I'm going to go to a game in Brazil. The South American broadcasters have invited me down there, and so I'm going to see a game while I'm there. So,
great. Enjoy.
I'm looking forward to the Univision coverage of the World Cup. And I imagine it's important as you view the future.
Yeah, Univision has sports in its DNA. Yeah. You know, we have more soccer than anybody else, which is what our audience prefers as a sport. Univision Deportes, after less than 1 year on the air, is carried by all operators except for one that will remain nameless because we're talking to them, and I don't want to embarrass them in case there's somebody in the audience that represents them or can tell them what I said about them. But they will carry it. They will carry it because that's what their audience wants. We're number one in the Spanish language sports business.
That's fantastic.
After less than a year, number one. Yeah. And we have more soccer than anybody else. And we beat the likes of ESPN Deportes and Fox Deportes and Fox en Español, I think it's called. So, yeah, it's in our DNA. So the World Cup is just part of it.
Well, you've been generous with your time to come over here this morning. Let us honor Jorge Ramos for a well-earned award. Again, I want to emphasize to all of you here, as I have been privileged to give the Lion's Roar for broadcasting now for over 4 years, I want you to know how important I recognize our networks and our affiliates and how strong they are in combination. But I want you to know how particularly and uniquely valuable and impactful Univision is as part of the broadcasting family, as part of the tapestry of America and of serving Americans. We thank you for being part of NAB.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Okay.
We're done, and a reminder to visit the show floor, everyone, to explore all the outstanding technology and presentations by our many exhibitors. Please have a great show. Enjoy it. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Haim.